And it's time to welcome in via telephone Michael Reagan, the political commentator who can be found on Twitter with the handle at Reagan World. Michael, we thank you so much for your time.
Good to be with you.
So, Mike, following President Obama's election, NPR questioned whether the U.S. was entering a new, quote, post-racial political era, and The Economist called his candidacy a post-racial triumph. What do you make of the president denying now this expectation existed following his election?
Yeah, well, welcome to the world of politics and the President of the United States, still searching and looking for his legacy because he doesn't know what it's going to be, so he keeps on jumping from issue to issue. But it's interesting to watch him on this issue of race. He always plays the race card. He sees himself only as a black man. I think he sees himself more as a black man than he sees himself as President of the United States of America. And that's what's truly unfortunate because he sees it only through those eyes. And therefore, he plays into the Al Sharpton organization. He plays into Jesse Jackson and Louis Farrakhan and so on and so forth. And that's what's sad because that's what takes race relations, down. It doesn't build it up. And to turn these two events that we're talking about into only about race is just so absolutely outrageous when, in fact, there are people, and I wrote a column this week. It's up on Newsmax. And I talk about Kelly Thomas. And I asked the question, do you remember Kelly Thomas? And nobody remembers Kelly Thomas. But Kelly Thomas was a homeless kid, 20s, maybe early 30s, schizophrenic, lived on the streets. And, a year ago, cops literally beat this man to death. Beat him to death. You know what his last words were, JD?
Who was that?
Dad, 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 as they beat him to death. But there's nobody wearing Dad, Dad T-shirts. Cops did this. Cops were put on trial, and all the cops were found innocent of beating this man to death. And so the article I write about, it's not about race. Maybe it's about bad cops because we've lowered the standards and people that we've hired into that business.
Michael, we want to get your reaction, though. There have been violent protests that have been erupting all across the country in the wake of Michael Brown and Eric Garner. Would you say race relations have somehow gotten worse under President Obama in this country?
Yeah, I think they have gotten worse. As long as there's money to keep the race issue alive, it will never get better. It'll never get better. We can get better as a people, but when you've got people who make a living by race baiting, you're always going to have the race issue. Because if you solve it, then you really put Al Sharpton out of a job. And Al Sharpton doesn't want to lose his job. Jesse Jackson doesn't want to lose his job. Louis Farrakhan doesn't want to lose his job. So you have your race baiters, and it's all about money. And as long as there's money in it, big money in it, you're never going to solve it at that level. Even though we as a people have solved it, it'll never be solved basically in the media.
Michael, you've already made mention of that new column that you penned about the issue of race in America. There's a quote that I want to share with everyone directly from the prose you composed for that column. Quoting you now, "We have a serious law enforcement problem in America, but it's not about race. It's about bad cops and how we've built our policing system. The media and the president pick and choose which victims of police stupidity or brutality to emphasize." With that in mind, and again, we show it on our parent website, newsmax.com, related information about that. What is the media template these days? Virtuous black person, evil cops, and whatever else goes on with other ethnic groups ignored in terms of police mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what I say in the column. They pick and choose. It's about ratings. It's all about ratings. It's not about anything else but ratings. And so they also keep the media. The mainstream media keeps it alive also. I mean, look what they did with the Trayvon Martin case. I mean, the fact that NBC, took a quote on the 9/11 call and chopped it up to make the man sound like he was a racist. Didn't play the whole thing because it played into that. And you have a lot of people sit there and say, I want the black society to really like me, media. So I'm going to do everything I can to really help them. Here in Los Angeles, Jay, you don't even know it, years ago, blacks used to have jobs downtown Los Angeles, working in the furniture manufacturer. Then regulations came in and said you can't build furniture down here because the what you're putting on the furniture that is terrible. So what happens is all those businesses moved to Mexico, and guess who lost all the jobs? The blacks in Los Angeles. And we still haven't recreated the jobs in Los Angeles. There's a lot of work to be done, but it's not about race. And I think what happens is by what we see on TV, because all we see are blacks rioting, all we see are stories of blacks killing, all we see is stories of blacks looting. I think it causes people to be racist that maybe were not racist before.
So you keep saying that this is something that needs to be solved. How can we solve it then? If you're saying media plays a critical role in forming opinions, what should people be doing to change the system?
And we only have about a minute, Michael.
Well, I think what people need to do to change the system is in fact, start telling the truth. Don't be afraid to tell the truth. Don't be afraid, like my column. I get people writing me about how can you put that column out there? Like, this is about race. You have to tell the truth. Don't buy into what the media is selling you. Don't buy into it. Really do some research and find out what's going on. And don't be afraid to share that information.
And that information, your column, can be found at Newsmax.com. We have it on the screen right now. Michael Reagan can be found on Twitter with the handle @ReaganWorld. Michael Reagan, we thank you very much for your time. There is much more to come here on America's Forum, but now we step aside for this Newsmax Now update.